Welcome, I'm Levi Webb with Pinnacle Running, and today I'm here with ultra runner and more importantly, sports chiropractor Hal Rosenberg, and today we are going to talk about foam rolling and other mobility techniques to keep you healthy and running long. Let's start out by talking a little bit about why runners should foam roll.
There's many things that runners can do aside from running. That's what we ultimately want to be doing. But there's little maintenance things that we can do on our own as runners in order to keep good musculoskeletal health and keep our body and our muscles and our joints and our tendons all moving well together so we can do all of those activities that we really love to do. So foam rolling and self-mobility techniques are things that runners and athletes can do on their own to keep themselves healthy, promote performance, and help prevent them from injuries which can sideline them where they need to bring in the services of someone like myself or a professional in order to have injury evaluation or treatment in the process.
Good. So there is a lot of information out there about rolling and myofascial release and ART. And when it comes to runners, what are the particular areas you would say that we should really put our focus?
So the focus is, as runners, we're going to focus more on lower body type things, and that's where people should be spending more time. But when we're running, we're utilizing, it's still a full body experience. So we still need to maintain good posture in our upper body. So there's foam rolling techniques that we'll talk about in a little bit that will implement some upper body postural type foam rolling techniques.
When is it best to foam roll? Would you say it's better as an injury prevention technique or something that you should do to manage your injuries once they happen?
Well, you can do it for both. But just as most things are, it's going to be better, and you'll get more pay grade out of it with doing it as a prevention. So it's something just like brushing your teeth. It's a lot easier to brush your teeth every day, and it's a pretty simple thing to do, and you don't have to do it a lot. But if you get a cavity or if you have a problem with your teeth, then you're at the dentist. It's painful, it's expensive, takes a lot more to get through it. So by investing 10, 20, 30 minutes a day that runners and athletes can do in the morning, in the evening. Sometimes people might break it up, do 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes in the evening. It's a really simple way that people can maintain good health that way. So prevention is definitely the better way to go. But if there is an injury, there's also ways that you can roll and mobilize with that. And then there's some do's and don'ts when you're working with an injury as well. So some do's and don'ts to do when you're foam rolling and doing self-mobilization techniques. A lot of people historically have had the belief or the mindset that we need to be aggressive when we're doing any kind of therapy, whether it's self-mobilization techniques, whether it's massage or chiropractic or different types of myofascial release therapies. And when we're too aggressive with the tissues, what tends to happen is that they respond in not a positive way, and they tend to splint and guard because the body thinks that it's too aggressive with that. So when we're doing these techniques, we want to keep it relatively comfortable. There can be an intensity or a good soreness to it, but it shouldn't be something that you have to be suffering through. The no pain, no gain mentality definitely does not apply here. That can just bring upon worsening the injury or creating one if there isn't one already there. Some other things to keep in mind when you're working with an injury, an example that we use a lot is, let's say there's an injury here in the quadricep, in the thigh. If the injury is right here, we don't want to roll up and down and over that area. The injury is right here, we want to roll up to about the area and back and forth like this. And then we can kind of come up above the area and back and forth. But we don't want to roll over it directly, especially if it's really painful or tender, because that can worsen the injury and make it hurt more. So we've been talking about foam roller mobility today, mainly with the foam roller. Standard 6-inch foam roller, pretty common. A lot of people like to use it. Higher density foam roller is going to be good. You want it firm but not too hard, so it gets into those tissues, but it's not too aggressive. There are many, many different toys that runners and athletes can play with. There's this smooth one here. This one has some knobs on it. Good way to get in for some different areas around the body. This stick here, made by Adiday. I like it because it's got different ridges here. It's got some different textures on it, so you can play with some of the different textures and ridges on it that are really good in order to get into different areas. This can get into some smaller areas as well, and these get into having a little bit of differential between the different areas of tissue are really beneficial. I like this mobility ball, very similar to the foam roller here, except think of this as like a 360-degree foam roller that you can go in any direction. Really useful when we're talking about getting into mobility around the glutes, the hips, that type of thing. Spiky ball we talked about in the plantar fascia and bottom of the foot video, really good for mobility, waking up some of the tissue in the bottom of the foot. And the lacrosse ball, good for getting into the bottom of the foot. We can also utilize this in the glutes and the hips. I recommend when utilizing it here. Most people are going to find it too aggressive on the floor to stand up, lean against the door or a wall in order to get some mobility in through there. You can also use it for your upper back. And really it's about finding the right kind of mobility tool that is going to serve the purpose. Try a couple different things, see what works best for you, and hopefully that'll help get things loosened up. So we're going to start off here to do some self-myofascial release of the foot. There's a couple different ways that we can do that. There's some great tools that we can use for that. They tend to be different types of balls. There's a spiky ball and a lacrosse ball that I like to implement with that. And same thing as we've been talking about. We just want to, as we're getting in, it doesn't need to be super aggressive. It can be pretty light in through here. And what I'm doing is just doing some very light pressure but quicker type movements here to wake up the plantar fascia on the bottom of the foot. You can see this ball has some spikes on it like this, so it kind of works into the fascia. We don't want to be too aggressive because that can bruise and damage the plantar fascia on the bottom of the foot. And I'm just going throughout, up and down from the pads of the toes to the heel, just back and forth to the inner arch to the outer arch. We can go front and back, we can go side to side, working all the way through here, and it feels really good with the right amount of pressure, and that's all going to be subjective to see what feels good for you. All right, now moving on to the calf and lower leg. We're going to start with the back part of the lower legs. A lot of people have tension in the Achilles, and this is a good way that we can work through that. When we're talking about the Achilles and the lower leg, we don't want to actually go right directly over the Achilles tendon. It can be really tender and sensitive, but there's a lot of muscles that blend into that we can help to mobilize and help reduce some tension in through there. Also, mobilizing through the lower leg can help take some tension off of the foot if people are experiencing plantar fasciitis or foot on the bottom, pain on the bottom of the foot as well. So to get started with this, if I like to divide the lower leg into a lower half and an upper half in through here. And I like to start with the lower half first and divide it vertically into a line or two on the outside of the Achilles and then a line or two on the inside of the Achilles. So what we're going to do here is just bridge up. We want to maintain good posture within the upper back and keep the shoulders back. And just start to put a little bit of weight onto the foam roller here. I can cross this leg over here to get a little bit more pressure. That's too aggressive for some people. If you have a lot of tension, you can uncross that leg and just do both legs. Let the left leg kind of go for a ride, but I find it more effective to still roll one side at a time. So what we're doing here is just 3 to 5 passes, just up and down, nice and slow. I see a lot of times people are going too quickly with this. we just want it to be nice and comfortable as we go through. Just gliding up on the tissue, we find a spot of tension. We can just kind of roll back and forth a little bit like so. 3 to 5 passes on the outer line, then we move in just a little bit so we're between the outer line and the inner line. And again, just nice and slow, rolling through, keeping it nice and comfortable. On these outer lines, we want to keep in mind there's a bone on the outer part of the leg called the fibula, which can be really sensitive if we roll over that, so we want to make sure that we don't roll over the fibula. Then we want to come in and roll to the inside part, just inside the Achilles, and just roll up 3 to 5 passes here, just nice and comfortable, and through there, and then we can roll into the inner leg here, and it can be pretty tender right up against the back part of the inner shin bone, which is called the tibia. So we just want to keep it comfortable through there, breathing throughout all of this. Again, not painful, can have a little bit of intensity, but want to keep it relatively comfortable. And then once we finish the lower leg, then we can go ahead and move on to the upper part of the lower leg. And same thing, we just got a couple lines on each side. We're coming up just about to the back of the knee, but one of the few areas that we never want to roll behind is right behind the back of the knee. There's some nerves and blood vessels that go through there. We don't want to put pressure on those. They're just a couple passes coming through. Again, I find a good little tender spot right here. So we're just going to roll back and forth a little bit, feel it melt away, and then come back up and down a little bit more. What I can also do is pump the ankle. So I can roll back and forth, and I can pump the ankle back and forth just to get a little bit of movement in some different ranges. So we're going to do some foam rolling here for the outer part of the lower leg, the peroneal muscle group, or more commonly referred to as the fibularis muscle group. There's that bone on the outer part of the lower leg called the fibula. We're going to avoid rolling over that, and we're going to come just to the front part of that, so we're going to get the peroneal muscle group as well as some of the tibialis anterior. So we can come in on the side of the foam roller here. We can come into a staggered stance on the foam roller like this. We're just going to bridge up onto our elbow here. Keep our elbows stacked underneath our shoulder. And we're just rolling back and forth here on the lower leg, avoiding the bone there, just keeping it nice and comfortable, and stack our legs together to get a little bit more pressure. And then we can roll it across to the front part of the lower leg onto the tibialis anterior. I'm going to keep good alignment in our shoulder and our elbow, not arching the back, not sagging the hips and pelvis, and just rolling back and forth through to roll out the peroneals and the tibialis anterior. I'm going to do some foam rolling for the IT band. Now, the iliotibial band runs from the pelvis, from the hip region up here, all the way down the outer part of the thigh and attaches just below the knee. Now, when people have IT band syndrome, they have pain on the outer part of the knee right here. And because that's where a lot of people have symptoms, that's where a lot of people think that they need to be rolling. And what happens when people roll there? It hurts a lot. And does it get any better? Not really. People roll and they roll and they roll and they think, I'm trying to do everything that I can, but everything they can is just rolling in that one area, or maybe they're icing it down there, and it's not getting any better. And rolling it down in that area is not going to help with the IT band. In fact, rolling directly over a lot of painful areas isn't going to help with that area. So there's nothing down here that we're really going to be able to mobilize in the lower part of the thigh. So when we're talking about the IT band, I recommend just rolling the upper half to upper 2/3 of the IT band between the lower part of the thigh all the way up to the hip and pelvis. So if we come onto the side here, we can start off up around the hip. And if we come just to the front of the IT band, in through here, and rolling back and forth, 3 to 5 passes. Again, should be relatively comfortable. If it's too much, we can take a hand down onto the ground and press down to support our weight a little bit. If we want a little bit more pressure, we can stack our legs like this, but sometimes that can become a little bit too intense. And it's not about more, it's about just being comfortable and mobilizing and loosening it through. So a little bit in the front of the IT band, a few passes. Now I'm going to come right behind it and just rolling through a little bit like so here. Just keeping it nice and comfortable, kind of slow and controlled. If I find a little spot, I can roll back and forth a little bit like so here. I can bend the knee, get a little bit more mobility through there to try to loosen some things up. So there we have foam rolling for the IT band. Move on to foam rolling for the quadriceps. So quadricep muscles between the hip and the knee here. We're going to get more into the hip region itself in another video, but we're working through this area through here in the quadricep, and so that's between the iliotibial band all the way around the front to the adductor, and we're going to target the adductor in a different video, and we're going to get the IT band on the outer thigh in a different video because there's a little bit of nuance to each one of those. So when we come in and we're going to do some rolling in through here, we're going to come almost into a plank position, and we're just going to roll back and forth like this, and then keep my toes on the ground. Even though it looks like both of my thighs are on the foam roller, I'm just really working at the right side right now. I like to foam roll each side individually. I think that you can, when you focus on one area, you can get some better work through there, and it's easier to target those muscles in a better way. So just going back and forth, a couple different lines, working through here, nice and slow, again 3 to 5 passes. If I find a little spot in through here, I can rock back and forth a little bit and get some knee flexion in here and roll like that. Knee extension and flexion. Just do some different types of moves to lengthen and shorten some of those tissues as I roll through those different areas. And that is foam rolling for the quadriceps. Alright, so now we're going to move on to some foam rolling for the adductor. That's the muscle on the inner part of the thigh that runs between the pelvis and the knee. So in order to do that, we're going to come on our knees, face square on here, but we're going to have the foam roller about a 45-degree angle right here. We're going to come down onto our hands and frog leg this out like so here, and then coming on to the knee and onto our elbows here, and just rolling back and forth, getting the inner part of the thigh and through here. The adductors are a really common area of tension in runners, and again, don't want it to be painful. A little bit of intensity, mild discomfort is okay. Good soreness is what we're looking for, and just something that's nice and comfortable as we roll down. Couple passes, just working our way down the adductor towards the knee. And there we are with foam rolling for the adductor. All right, as runners, it's important that we have good upright posture, just like it is for any activity that we're doing in life. And as we tend to sit and drive and slouch forward, that's going to work against us as runners. It's just bad mechanics in general. It's going to close off our lungs. We won't be able to breathe and get as deep a breath as is going to be ideal for just life and sport. So a couple great ways to get some mobility in the upper back. We're going to do a vertical foam roller along the spine here. So if you can see, I'm sitting towards the edge of the foam roller here. It's going to be key to have one that's long enough where you can lay down on it completely. And as you lay back, so your head is supported as well. So I'm going to slide down just a little bit so my pelvis all the way up to the back of my head is supported. And I can just let my arms hang out here. And I just have a nice, comfortable bend in my elbows here. I don't want to have my elbows locked out. I just want to have a comfortable bend through here so you get a good stretch through the front of the chest. I can hold that for 15, 20, 30 seconds as I just let gravity hold my arms down, and then just nice and comfortably, I'm just going to bring my arms up overhead like so, and just, you know, a snow angel or a wall angel. And I'm just going to go back and forth here, just letting gravity pull my elbows down, and ever so slightly, not forcefully at all, just letting a small pull down towards the ground, just to kind of ease my arms and shoulders down into the ground just a little bit more than they are. Just nice and slow, getting a good stretch in my upper back and the muscles across the front of the chest. And there we are with foam rolling for the chest along a vertical spine. So important to do, in another video we did vertical foam rolling along the spine. Now we're going to do it where we can get work on some thoracic in the upper part of the spine. Posture is important as runners and athletes in order to maintain good mechanics and be able to get good lung volume and inhale fully. So we're going to come in where we can just lean back on the foam roller here a little bit, and we're going to support the back of our head, and we're just going to bridge up a little bit. So now all the weight is between my feet and my upper back, and I'm just going to roll from the mid back all the way to the upper back here. Just nice and slow as I come through, just working on getting a little bit of extension into the upper back. With slouched postures that many of us have, this is going to help to reverse that to get us back to a better spinal posture. And then coming up here, just letting my head drop back a little bit with the neck, supporting it again, coming back up, down to the middle back, just rolling back and forth nice and slow, thinking segment by segment within the spine, working to get some good extension in through the upper back between the shoulder blades. And it feels really good. Just get that opened up and loosened up. And there we are with some foam roller mobility for the upper back.
Hey, thanks for watching, and for more great running content, make sure you do the things with the buttons, and also check out our ever-growing library of running information from great experts at pinnaclerunning.com.